Hi everybody, Tom Hill III here, again with Bob the Builder from Warner Consulting. And Bob's a friend, and we do a lot of business with him, and you've seen him before with me, but I know you can't be watching TV every minute, so we thought we'd do another one. Hello, Bob Warner.
How you doing, Tom?
Good, nice to see you again. We're going to start off today with a case study. I had the pleasure of selling a huge industrial building in the Naugatuck Industrial Park a couple of years ago, and a fella who had 50 workers and a lot of equipment needed to move everything out of a little building into a big building. And all of a sudden, I found out that my friend Bob was on the job. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it as a case study?
Well, I got a call from the owner that they were having a problem getting their facility built out and able to move everything over, get their certificate of occupancies and the okay to be able to move the manufacturing. From
That's a big one, a CO, folks. Those are hard to get. They can be troublesome, and make sure that you know about them, what's involved, and Bob is really good at getting them, and there's a lot of work before getting the CO, isn't there?
Yeah, well, they had done some work within their facility, within their warehouse. They were building out some workstations where they built stairs in each station, and the town came in and closed them down because they didn't have the they didn't have the permits.
Oh, that's got to be a real bummer.
Yeah, that wasn't good. So called me up, got me involved. The first thing I had to do was meet with the town officials and get straight what they were really looking for to get him back
in business.
Yeah, back in business basically. So we met with them, got that straight. And
all right, when you met with them, what were some of the questions and issues you had to overcome? Because there must be 3 or 4 different permits, from building permit, electrical permit, plumbing permit, etc.
Yeah, well, fortunately, Pure Power Electric, Tom Hill, your son, the fourth, was the electrical company on the job, and so he was kind of handling that end, and I was coordinating his work into our work in these workstations that they were needing to build out. And they had some workstations that were outside of this particular enclosed area, or to be enclosed area as well.
A lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts, and
oh, do the building inspectors, I know we talked about this last time, but a lot of people try to do things with permits or do them incorrectly. How do the building inspectors feel about that?
well, they're not, they obviously they want things done the right way. In this particular case, I had to introduce an architect onto the job to draw up all the plans we needed. We had to get the building recertified, reclassed, I should say.
What does that mean?
Well, depending upon whether you're an A, a B, or a C, it requires different products, sprinklers, etc.
A, B, C, easy as 1, 2, 3, but not really.
Not really. Well, in this case, we got it classified as a C, which allowed him the structures that he had built out. They didn't have to be fire-rated structures because it was a C. The building was fitted out with sprinklers, but they needed to be modified to fit into that area. And
that's another, sprinklers are very complicated too. Dry or wet, when do they turn on? Do you have to keep the heat on in the building? And then do you have to put special heads and point them towards the area of the enclosure you're working on?
Well, there are requirements as to how far they can be separated and away from. In this particular case, this area had to be enclosed. The walls and platform were, say, 9 feet high, and the ceilings were 22. So from the top of the walls to the roof, we had to put I'll call it plastic. It wasn't plastic. It was a fire-rated material that we had to locate, get all the specs on, get all the approvals from the fire marshal for their use. Document them all, and then acquire it.
And do you use a tape measure or electronic measuring in this day and age?
You do a little bit of both, but once we had that straight, then it's bringing the sprinkler guy in, making sure he understands what the enclosure is going to be, modify the sprinkler system and the heads there above it to the right location. Some needed shields because if you have a head too close to another, they overlap, and they've got to have these little shields that have them spray the right way.
All right, so since we're on video, here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the details. How do you know all this stuff?
Well, been doing it for years, and again, it's just you go one step at a time and get straight what everybody wants. The building inspector may want one thing, the fire marshal another, the mechanical
Don't bang the table.
another, etc. The other little intricate thing here was that the warehouse was serviced, that was heated by infrared heaters. So there was concern with how they were vented, and not just vented, but they had no outside air being brought in when he purchased the building, so you had to...
Yeah, you're right, it was a big parts warehouse.
Yeah, so it had to be modified.
However, the guy had to buy it because there's not enough buildings around to buy, and it had the good bones. Good thing he had somebody like you to straighten them out, because it's a complete building project inside the building, correct?
Yeah, and you know, I was fortunate in that the owner had been, his business was in the construction industry, so he was somewhat sophisticated, but he didn't have the time or the knowledge to do it all, and he needed to run his own business.
All right,
So-
speaking of continuing education, again, where did you get all this knowledge, and what do you do for continuing education? I know I have to go for 12 hours every 2 years, which it should be more, actually.
Well, I would say my education is every day at work, because you run into, no matter how long you've done this, you can run into something new or different, and it's pretty common sense stuff that, you know, I learned a long time ago, you don't have to know everything, you just have to know how to call somebody that does.
Call me, 203-755-HILL.
Yeah.
I'm Bob's friend. Every time I have a problem with a project, or I'm leasing something, or somebody's building a new building, I always bring him in early. Why should they call you, and how soon ahead of time to go through all these complications, steps that we're talking about on this case study of this large factory in the Naugatuck Industrial Park, that you kind of got the guy on his feet with that? Not financial, well, it wasn't financial, it was too many things that had to get fixed to get his certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, well, you know, had we started earlier, I mean, he's trying to move from one location to the next, and he's buying this building, and till he does, he's carrying expenses in both places.
Good point.
So the sooner he gets moved over and operating, and obviously he went there because it's a bigger building, and he was able to expand his operations. So he needed to get moved in to really put his business where he wanted it to be. So,
All right, for me
and
to
he got
jump
hold
in,
of us
if you
sooner.
want to meet Bob the Builder, there's no obligation, no costs for an introduction to see who he is and what he does, and he can listen to what your situation is, whether it's a problem, a new building, a tenant, moving into a building that has a building inside. I know you're looking at some restaurants to do the build-outs. Those kitchens are a big deal. You can find Bob at 203-982-3481, 203-982-3481. And is there more on the case study? Maybe a happy ending?
Well, yeah, we got it all built out, and all the approvals necessary for him to get in and operating and relocate his business, and he's doing great. So everything worked out good, real good, and excellent customer, and I've done business with and for him for many years. So
We love repeat business. All right,
Yeah.
take a look at your list over here and see if there's a couple more topics we want to hit while we have time on this podcast and in our studio here. Thanks to Jeff for being our producer out there. Wave at the camera if you can, Jeff.
yeah, no, the just my business is Warner Consultant and Construction LLC, and we usually come in early from the consulting side and put together the project and numbers for it, and then
How long does that take?
depends on the size and scope of the job,
Okay.
and how intricate it is, and whether, in many cases today, different years ago, you got to get an architect involved, you need stamp drawings, etc., to be able to do the work. So
Oh, my son, Tom Hill, Fort Pure Power Electric, is telling me that almost every job today needs a engineered plan signed by a PE.
yeah.
Why
yeah.
is that, do you think?
I think-
Safety, risk,
liability. I think the towns just want everything. You know, if they've got a stamp drawing, whether it be architecturals or MEP drawings, they're covered a little bit more. And we're seeing it not just with big jobs, but residential, where people want to do an addition or build a house. Where I used to be able to come in and I would design a house, bring in plans, apply, get permits, and construct. Now they want, very often they want an architectural drawing that's stamped and included with it, so.
I think it's a liability issue. I know in downtown Waterbury, I did a ton of leasing in the old days. And you'd sell somebody a new building, and all of a sudden they bought it, and then the fire department would come around and start looking and instruct the buyer of the new building, you gotta change this, change these lights, you've gotta, and you could end up spending $100,000 on fire safety, human safety. So talking to a guy like Bob way in front of it, and I know, how do I know? When I'm selling a building or I'm leasing a building or doing some consulting assignments like he does on real estate, as soon as I see it's out of my league, I know where to go, and I go to Bob a lot. Would you meet this developer? Would you meet this owner? And talk about what he needs. And, you know, Bob doesn't cost you money, he saves you money and keeps you out of trouble.
Yeah, I think one of the things too, people need to understand is that depending upon the degree of work they're doing in the building, if they're doing over a certain amount, the town can require that you bring that whole building up to today's codes.
Uh-oh!
Yeah, so you could be spending a lot more money than you think you're gonna spend.
And it could bankrupt you, or your bank could be saying, I only lent you this much money. And you're good with the banks too, because you own
Yes.
yourself. How about a little story about banking and going to the bank and financing things, and you do refinancings on buildings, so you're a good guy that's in the business as an entrepreneur, knowing banking, financing, accounting, etc.
Yeah, well, banks today, you know, some banks are easier to borrow $1 million versus a few $100,000, so it's knowing which ones have an appetite for what lending and
And what kind of job, yeah, what
kind of job, and packaging the whole thing correctly so that when you supply the bank with the information they need, you're not going back and forth on, we need this, we need that, we need this, we need that. You can expedite it by providing them, having a knowledge of what it is they might be looking for, or at very least getting it straight up front, exactly what they need documentation of, so that you can supply it all and get approvals and closings quicker.
And do you have any preference of going to a banker when you identify a bank that does that, or a mortgage broker, and letting him help you with the package and run around for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like in any business, construction, real estate, etc. Banking, if you've got contacts with people that you know do a very good job, that are thorough and good at what they do, that's going to help you expedite what you're trying to get done, whether it's financing, refinancing, construction loans, whatever it is you might be trying to do. So yeah, finding the right people that are good, you do hang on to them.
This is Bob, the Experience Builder. 203-982-3481, 203-982-3441. I'm 3481, 982-3481. I'm Tom Hill III, CCIM, SIOR. My website is tomhill.com, and I'm a 40-year practitioner in commercial real estate services, select brokerage, and advisory. Done business with Bob 35 years, always had a great experience with him, and happy to help him with this podcast situation. What else you got on your list there, Bob?
I think that's it, Tom.
Oh, can't be that. It can't be, Bob.
Covered it, you know.
All right, you got any good jokes?
No, I'm not good at that.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll be back with more, and we appreciate you tuning in. I'm TomHill.com, and Bob Warner is 203-982-3481. And pretty soon, in a future edition, we'll give you his website and more bells and whistles. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.